Hello friends, and welcome to the program. I am so honored and I am so happy today to have one of my very favorite people in the entire world with us, and I'm so glad that he agreed to do this, Congressman Trent Franks. And of course, as many of us in Arizona know, he represents the Arizona 8th District, which is my district, so he's my congressman. So I want to welcome you to the program, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm just so honored to be with all of you, honored to be with you personally and just the entire Syrian people. I have the greatest opinion and just very honored to be with you.
Well, thank you so much. And this means a lot that you are here on the Mona Kay Show, because of the fact that this is the only English-speaking program that we are actually raising a platform and trying to build a bigger platform to let the world know that the Assyrians are not demolished and they're not annihilated and they're not off the face of the earth, that we are actually proactively working and we are actually proactively taking upon ourselves to actually save ourselves, because of the fact that we know that the world has, with the genocide that's going on in the Middle East, the world has chosen for some reason or another to stay silent or maybe not get involved. Now, just a little bit background, Congressman. You're a conservative Reagan Republic, which I love, close to my heart as well. Currently serving for good reason, 7th term in the United States Congress, and like I said, for very good reason. So proud of all of you have done, and the fact that you are a friend not only to the Assyrian community, but so many other communities that you have a heart for.
Well, you know, I have a special heart for the Assyrian community. There's so many noble groups of people throughout the world, but the Assyrians, it seems like today I divide them in two groups. Those who have stayed behind and fought the good fight to maintain their culture and their history in Iraq and other places, and then those that have been driven out, but that instead of running and leaving their compatriots behind, they put a beachhead in America and other places and began to build an effort to rescue the ones that are left behind, and to continue to stand not only for the freedom of the Assyrian people, but really they know firsthand the tragedy of you know, the dictatorships across the world. And so the Assyrian people have been one of the strongest voices anywhere for democracy and freedom and human dignity throughout the world. And
fighting on behalf of the world, really.
That's right.
Yeah, you know. And this event that you are here for, of course, we are at the 83rd Annual Assyrian American National Federation convention that is held every year, and Congressman has so graciously accepted our invitation to come speak here. And the fact that this particular organization had its foundations through a chaotic and another massacre that we can count onto the many that we've suffered. The 1933 massacre of a town in the north of Iraq called Semele that claimed the lives of over 3,000 to 5,000 Assyrian Christians. And I always say, you know, the Assyrians are not only, Congressman, they're not only attacked from one front because of their faith, but because of their identity. So there's a plan to annihilate this community for some reason. And this institution that you're about to speak at the dinner later on tonight was founded on that. And it continues to stay vigilant and continues to lend a hand and continues to reach out to those that we've left behind.
Well, I think just the fact that this is the 83rd consecutive year that you've done this shows an enormous commitment to resilience. I think it just shows how relentless the Assyrian people are. And, you know, the reality is that ISIS had every plan to annihilate the Assyrian Christians, but that plan has not succeeded, and it won't. Somehow there's great power in a determined commitment to not only stay alive, but to fight for the truth. And that's what the Assyrians have done. And I believe the Assyrians will be here long after ISIS is a bloody, horrifying memory. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why we call this program the voice of the oppressed and the persecuted, but also the voice of survivors like me who, you know, and our statement is, you know, you might have tried for the enemy, but here we are still surviving and thriving. Right. So I want to take you back a little bit, and I've wanted to get your viewpoint on this. Iraq was liberated in 2003. And the liberation didn't work as well as many had imagined. And I've spoken to you about this prior. The Christians specifically, when they saw the coalition forces coming in through the gates of Baghdad and toppling Saddam, they had such a great hope in that the Christian nations of the West were coming finally, that they will hear their silent cries that had been going on since the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein. But that didn't happen.
and yet it was what some of us wanted so desperately.
Yeah.
You know, when that war was being fought for the liberation of Iraq and for the liberation of the Assyrian Christians in Iraq. Some of us, I think there were about 8 of us in the Congress that attached an amendment to the appropriations to continue to fight that battle that required religious freedom in Iraq. And that amendment survived and passed, but somehow it was never implemented like it should be. And of course, the Obama administration has done everything they could to roll that back. You know, they're so busy tripping over themselves to somehow placate the Islamist nations of the world that they step back and wouldn't try to work to see religious freedom come to Iraq. And as some of you know, I wrote a letter, and we had I think about 40 or 50 members of Congress sign this letter. As soon as ISIS started to come into Iraq, it was very early on, and we said to the administration, this is an incredibly dangerous group. They have measured their corporate success by how many people they kill and kidnap, and how much land that they take from other people, and that this was a terribly dangerous thing. Of course, this administration Mr. Obama stayed on the golf floor and ignored it. He said that this was a JV team, and then they began to rape and behead and crucify their way across Iraq. And the Assyrian Christians were among some of the most numerous and most heartbreaking victims of ISIS. But they've stood strong, and ISIS has not prevailed yet. And I just hope somehow in the coming American election that we will elect someone that will stand truly against ISIS.
Someone that will not reason with the terrorist or negotiate, because there's no negotiations. Just like what the terrorist that walked into the nightclub in Florida. It was just how many bodies. It was how many people that they could kill. It was their destruction in numbers. The higher the number, the better. There is no, correct?
Mona, that's exactly right. You know, there's only 2 components to every national security threat, really, and that's the intent and the capacity of your enemy. And if the terrorists have not shown their intent yet, if they have not demonstrated, if we don't understand their intent yet, we're simply not paying attention. And this administration continues to say, well, we'll leave an open hand here for you. But unfortunately, the terrorists are just delighted to have America being led by a president like Barack Obama. And if Mrs. Clinton is elected this fall, and these are my opinions, I'm not trying to impose my opinion on the rest of your program here, but if somehow Hillary Clinton is elected in this coming election, terrorists across the world will have a greater celebration. It will make the one at the Democratic National Committee look like a slumber party. And they know that if they can back down the leadership of the most powerful country in the world, that they have nothing to worry about.
And have you, speaking of that, we're Americans, and of course we're very involved and would love to hear your decision on, have you decided to support Donald Trump?
Oh, I definitely have. I'm just going to be very open with you. He was not my first choice, but now he's the only choice. And I pray that people understand that whatever foibles he might have, they pale in comparison to the danger that Hillary Clinton represents, not only to the Republic of the United States, not only to the Constitution of this nation, but to peace and security all over the world. And you know, the world right now is kind of half on fire with Barack Obama, and Mrs. Clinton will only continue that. She will be a third Obama term, and I just can't express to you how dangerous that is for the world.
It is, and we need to unify our party, and we need to come together and understand that if the Democratic Party wins, that you know, even with the Christians in the Middle East, I mean, they are doomed for.
Well, that's true, and you know, as Christians, we're not. Our allegiance isn't to a party, it isn't to the Democrats or the Republicans, it's to those who will do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And in this particular case, an honest assessment of the leadership of both of these parties has shown that the Republicans do stand for freedom, human freedom across the world, and they're willing to take political disadvantage to promote that freedom. And I want everybody to know there's only 2 ways to change policy in America, too. We either elect the right people or we beg the wrong ones to do the right thing. And for the last 8 years, we've been begging the wrong man to do the right thing, and he will not do it.
Wow. Wow. That is a powerful statement, truly. I want to quote a priest that recently I just interviewed, and he's become one of my heroes. Lately, I've been adding on to the list of heroes for me. His name is Father Daniel Al-Khoury. He recently said on my program, the Assyrian Christians are being vomited from Iraq and Syria while the world watches. Now, I'd hate to put you in that position, obviously. You've tried to do so much good, and you've tried, you know, made so many efforts. There are so many questions on so many levels that we can ask, you know, but some of which comes to my mind is what was not done to save the Christians? What should have been done? And is there hope to do anything right now with the population of the Christians, Syriac, Chaldean, Assyrians, from 1.3 to 1.5 million, down to, and some people will argue back and forth, 250 to 300,000.
I know. First of all, I don't know how to express the level of tragedy that that represents. I just, it is a tragedy that is beyond my ability to articulate. And yet this administration has stood by and let it happen. And let me just say, to answer your question, first of all, the entire world needs to understand that if we don't have religious freedom, all other freedoms are soon to be lost. If we don't have that, we don't have anything else. Consequently, if we, as a people, as a world population, don't recognize the importance of this basic freedom, or religious freedom, then all other freedoms, like I say, are going to be lost sooner or later. But what should have happened when we went into Iraq the first time? We should have stayed until we had eradicated Mr. Saddam Hussein the first time. And then we should have insisted that there was religious freedom in that country. Now, I'll give you an example. When we fought the war and we had the battle with Japan, when Japan surrendered, we said that they have to write a new constitution. We told them that there has to be religious freedom in that constitution. They gave us two constitutions that did not have religious freedom in them. And we insisted, and we then wrote it, because you don't have a war only to start all over without freedom at its core going forward. And that's what we should have done in Iraq. We should have insisted that there be religious freedom. It's fine for people to believe in Islam. It's fine for people to believe in Christianity, in Judaism, whatever it might be. But people have an indigenous, foundational, core right to their conscience and to believe and worship who they choose. And if we don't have that, everything else comes apart. If you don't have conscience rights, you have nothing. So that's what we should have done. And if we had done so, I think we could have prevented a lot of this tragedy.
Right now, we're hearing from the news and on the ground, as we have firsthand news from people that are fighting and on the front lines. A lot of the cities and the towns in Mosul, in north of Iraq, are being finally liberated as more people are fighting. I mean, they caught them by surprise, and we know that it was an internal plan that ISIS was able to invade. But right now, with all of the IDPs, with everyone just leaving with the clothes on their back, and most of them have already traveled to Europe, to other parts of the world, what would you suggest, or what would be something that you could advise for people that once it's liberated, and as you well know, Congressman, there's been a lot of land confiscation from the Christians.
Absolutely.
Whereas their villages and towns are being vacated, other people are coming in particular, you know, the Kurds are coming in and taking over their lands. What would you advise, or how would you handle that situation if you were advising them?
Well, first of all, America needs to recognize its leadership capacity in the world. People say, well, America's not the world's policeman. Well, then who is? The truth is, America is the unipolar superpower of the whole world, and we have a profound responsibility before God to stand for the principles that made us the nation that we are, because when we allow malicious dictatorships to crush the innocent in some other part of the world, all too soon they come knocking on the door of the rest of us.
Exactly.
And it's vital that we stand for that. And first of all, we need to go after ISIS and make an announcement that America is coming. And if you're part of ISIS, we are going to get you. The stars and stripes are coming. The eagle is looking, and we're coming for you. And we need to wipe out ISIS to the last person. If you have any association with them, you're in mortal danger. That needs to be clear and unequivocal. And once we do that, then we need to say, and from now on, we are not going to stand by and let evil tyrants gain footing. We're going to make sure that we export freedom by making sure that we support those who are they're the promoters of religious freedom and the ones that hold those ideals. And we're not going to stand around and just let evil crush the innocent.
Absolutely.
Because it always, always, always spreads when you do that. The idea is, well, we don't want to be involved. But you know, I remember Winston Churchill's quote that I thought was so profound. When the Nazis were beginning to encroach in the whole world, and America said, well, we don't really want to get involved, you know. Hitler met with the English leader, and he said, well, when Hitler met, he gave the English leader a choice. Chamberlain was given the choice of either shame or war. According to Mr. Churchill, Chamberlain chose shame, but he got war. And then he went on to say something I thought was very profound that applies today and probably always. He said, still, if you will not fight for the right, when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight.
Absolutely.
With all the odds against you, which is what the Assyrians are doing right now.
Yeah.
With all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. But there may be a worse moment. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is still better to perish than to live as slaves.
Absolutely.
Now that woke up, that mindset woke up the American people, and it woke up the American leadership, and we came into World War II, and by the grace of God, one of the most evil, dark, hellish regimes of all time was beaten back. But just by that much, they could have gained probably the advantage and maybe won the war if they'd had more fuel and if America had waited just a few more months before becoming involved. And now we face ISIS, which I think is in a more insidious, more ugly and dark, evil ideology even than the Nazis. And I never thought I'd say that, because I think the Nazis were the most dark, hellish nightmare that we'd faced thus far. And yet ISIS is even more evil than they are. And if they gain the world capacity, because what I said, you know, there's only two components to a threat. It's intent and capacity. Right now, ISIS has the worst intent that we can possibly imagine. But what would be terrible if they gain the capacity, if Iran gains a nuclear weapons capability. And this administration has placed them on that trajectory and has put our children on the path to walk into the shadow of nuclear terrorism. And it is a disgrace that will be one of the darkest marks on their record for future generations. And I just can't express to you how broken I am sometimes about this utter lack of conviction on the part of American leadership, especially one Barack Obama.
Yeah, and it's so sad for people to stand back and say, we don't want to get involved, going back to when you're saying, we don't want to get involved. But here you have, and I was just talking to one of the soldiers, one of the commanders of one of the militia armies, Christian armies, that our very own Arizona son, Navy SEAL Charlie Keating, died alongside this particular commander, and he could not thank him enough. And I asked him, I know many are saying Charlie Keating died for a no good cause, but I asked him, I said, do you think he died for a good cause? And his answer was, absolutely, he died for one of the highest causes, standing next to the Christians, the Assyrians, those that love democracy and are free thinkers and love the way of life that as it is democracy and all over the world. He died for that cause.
Well, I will say just a few things about Navy SEAL Charlie Keating. First of all, he was a noble hero from a noble family.
My hero,
and
truly.
This man was a hero of the first magnitude. And not only did he die for a good cause, a great cause, there are few causes greater that a person could think to die for. And I'm convinced with all of my heart that when that man steps over the threshold of eternity, as he's already done, he was welcomed by the nail-scarred hand and said, come on in here. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I truly believe that we should all be so fortunate as Charlie Keating in the final analysis. And I'm proud of the man. I wish he knew that. And we're doing everything that we can to let him be known. But he was not neutral. You know, there's an old quote that says, the hottest place in hell is preserved for those who in times of great moral crisis preserve their neutrality. and Mr. Obama, you know, seems to have wanted to preserve his neutrality and somehow just be the guy that doesn't get involved. And what he doesn't know, or maybe he doesn't care, is that when you stand by in the face of malicious, malevolent evil and just say, well, I don't want to get involved, well,
that's a legacy he's going to have to live with.
He is, and he will also. It'll sooner or later come to our shores, as it's already done. You know, we said that if he didn't stand against terrorism overseas, that it would come to our shores, and it did. And
we're just getting ready to celebrate another memorial of September 11th. I mean, if that wasn't a wake-up call for us all, and all of the other attacks that have come to our shores, I mean, what else what is it going to take to wake us up?
You know, I don't know why it seems like the highway of history is littered with the wreckage of neutral, gutless presidents or gutless leaders that refuse to stand for the truth. And instead of fomenting peace through passivity, they invited aggression, and they created more death and suffering than anyone that has said, no, we will stand and we will protect the innocent, and we will stand for truth and freedom. So if you want to take on America, you're making a mistake. Those, you know, it's like Ronald Reagan. The moment he raised the toast to take office, of the inauguration, the hostages left Iranian airspace.
Absolutely.
Because the evil
yes.
leaders in Iran knew this is a different guy
Exactly.
than Jimmy Carter.
He's not
and they said,
he doesn't
we
stand in
don't
the
want
middle.
to mess with
no
him.
neutrality there.
Yeah. There's no difference in their capacity. As a president, Mr. Carter had the same capacity, you know, at his disposal in terms of in terms of military capability, but there was a different intent. And the Iranians read that, and I will tell you that's what we need today. We need people that are not belligerent, that are not bullies, that are not arrogant, but simply say what they mean and mean what they say, and everybody understands that, and said, we would rather fight now when we can be strong and win than we would to wait till malicious evil gets strong enough to crush the innocent.
I want to ask you a sort of an what-if question. What if President Trent Franks was in office? And don't I wish to see that day coming soon?
Well, I tell you, don't hold your breath on that one, my
Well, you
lady.
know, I'm going to pray about it. I mean, I'm still going to keep my hope. But what would have happened in Frank's administration? What would Iraq be? What would Iraq look like today if you were president?
Well, I can only say to you, and I suppose the best way for me to do it is to reference something that is clear and tangible. When I wrote the letter to this president, I said we need to stop ISIS while they are just now entering into Iraq. And it wouldn't have taken much.
And everybody saw them coming in.
No, it wouldn't have taken much. They were coming in columns, unprotected, you know, without you know, serious significant armor. We would have immediately put a strike force there, and we'd have said one time, you step into Iraq and we will blow you to vapor. Now, it's up to you. And then if they did, we'd blow them to vapor. And that would have been over.
So why wasn't that done?
Because this president is a coward. This president would rather look good than stand for protecting the innocent. Whether they're unborn children, whether they're little Iraqi girls being, little Christian girls in Iraq being sold to ISIS
Or
for 50
Yazidis,
cents for prostitution, or anyone. Yazidis, there's thousands of victims. There are people that are lying dead because this president stood by with a golf club in his hand and ignored it. And I can't express to you how dangerous I think this neutrality, this asinine attitude to let evil have its way really is to the whole world.
I don't know how it is that this administration is able to sleep, having on their conscience the annihilation of an ancient civilization or ancient community like the Assyrian, the Chaldean, and the Syriac, the Armenians, the Yazidis. How is it that, I mean, what point of reference? I mean, all three religions
it's hard to point to it.
were founded in that country, and today, as Israel is being attacked through the Old Testament, the Assyrians and Christians in general are being attacked through the New Testament. So there's an attack on the Bible itself.
Yeah. One outrage after another seems to just be ignored by this president. In fact, he seems to be more. He seems to almost be a facilitator for some of this, and it's again.
Well, his
I don't have the
neutrality
words.
seems to be saying
neutrality. You know, neutrality sometimes. Let me just suggest to you that the neutral, passive, devil-may-care attitude of Barack Obama is more dangerous to this world than the worst and most prevalent, proactive
enemy.
Because it takes away our ability to defend ourselves.
You know when the enemy's coming, you prepare yourself for the attack, but when someone is neutral and does nothing, you know, you could need the help as the dire need that is needed in this current genocide in the Middle East, and nothing. And these people, as I mentioned to you the other day, there are people, and I don't want to say that they're losing their faith, but they are questioning, where is God? I mean, little children that are getting Christmas gifts because of their faith, saying Christ was born today. He says, well, what's Christ done for me? Well, I'm getting a gift from who? So their faith is all being, and I don't blame them. For the first time in their life, they are feeling like they are lost, desolate, no one coming to, and especially disappointed in we all are immigrants and came to America because of our faith, for the freedom of faith. But today that faith is being attacked in them, and they feel like their biggest hero, America, is not coming through for them.
Well, that's exactly right. And here's the thing, you know, God certainly gave the human family the ability to fight off people like ISIS, and it's within our power, it's within our decisive capability to do that, and we haven't done it, so it's difficult to blame God for it. This is something that those of us in leadership have fallen short of our stewardship to do. And I just, again, I try to remind the American people then as often as it can be said, there are only two ways to change American policy. We either have to elect the right people or beg the wrong ones to do the right thing. And this time in November, everything is at stake.
Very important. I was talking to an activist that was a young lady that's doing phenomenal work in north of Iraq. And she was relaying to me some of the children's play time and what they are playing with. For example, boys are asking, for example, Christmas is coming, they're asking for guns so they can defend their family. Children are acting like one is a member of the ISIS group and then coming to attack. So this is what the mental state of our children today. It's all traumatic. It's all in a war zone. It's conflicted. Children are not allowed to be children. Parents are not able to parent their children, and so their children right now are free to think, and they're just traumatized. They're not children anymore.
I tell you, Mona,
so it's a chaotic situation that no one seems to understand, that the littlest help, anyone that can help, but it's not just monetary, it's just being a friend. And we feel like the Assyrians feel right now, the Christians, they have no friend in the world.
But they do. The Assyrians, you know, they embraced the gospel of Christ in the first century.
Yes, yes they did.
And at that moment, those who were part of that were freed for eternity. And even though there have been people on this earth to try to enslave them ever since, they will prevail in the long run. And there are a lot of Americans that stand for the Assyrians, and somehow we will prevail. And I know when I witness the despair of Christians under such persecution, it almost makes me want to despair myself, but I'm not going to do it. We're going to do what we can.
We need to stand and hope.
You know, the Lord himself said, you know, in the world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer.
Amen.
I've overcome the world. And Barack Obama, he will be gone in a few months as president, and he can go from us in obscurity, and we hope that he wears his chains proudly, because most of us will forget that he was our countryman. Yeah,
but the devastation and the consequences we're still living with. Last question, Congressman. You know, you've been a friend of the Assyrians for years, and you've always come through for us with your prayers and other policies, and you've always been, I always call you the champion. You've always championed our cause. Now, during the process, we've, you know, made a list of demands, obviously, that we'd like to see in fruition. We'd like to see them happen in Iraq, some and I'll read them off. Establish the Nineveh Plains province under the international protection. Stop the confiscation of Assyrian lands in north of Iraq. Adding the Assyrian name, and this is brand new, and we brought it to your attention the other day. Adding the Assyrian name next to the Arab, Kurds, and Turkmens in the national ID, which right now they're not being able to. They're not able to, again, there's an attack not only from the faith side, but from the national side. We're not allowed to say we are Assyrians. Assist and equip Assyrian forces to fight against ISIS. I was just interviewing NPF. There's NPU. Of course, the group NPF is the soldiers and the force that Charlie Keating, Navy SEAL Charlie Keating, lost his life with. And to find a way to financially help the IDPs. Because the IDPs are not in tents anymore. You know, they're in what they call caravans, but it's not home. They need to go home.
Well, you know, I mean, it's probably sounds like just trying to agree with you on everything, but you know I embrace with my whole heart every one of those points that you mentioned. And I especially believe that perhaps two of them I point out was especially important. The Nineveh Plains, if we had a safe zone there where the Assyrian people could regroup, and this is their natural homeland, and they should be there. And if we also did everything we could to equip them to defend themselves and to fight ISIS. There are many of the other things that I would embrace as well, but this is so very important. Right now they don't. To start. Right now they don't have that. And of course, I have advocated for that on a regular basis, and I'm not sure that we're going to see anything of consequence from Barack Obama. He seems content to just sort of wait it out, and you know, I don't know how the man sleeps at night. But I will be glad that he'll be sleeping somewhere else beside the White House soon. And by the grace of God, this country will survive Barack Obama. A lot of innocent little people across the world did not. And for many of them, hope will never come in time, or help will never come in time. But the high and lofty one that inhabits eternity sees their plight.
Amen.
And we're going to continue to do everything that we can.
We'll continue to pray. And
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
continue to pray for you, Congressman. You are truly one of the lions in Congress.
I appreciate
The Assyrian community and all Christians love you and love your advocacy. You have proven yourself time and time again that you are truly not just, you don't speak, you advocate and you take action, and we appreciate all of that.
I would just say, perhaps my last word to you, Mona, is that it's the Assyrians that have been the lions. They have stood up against evil even when they were outpowered and outgunned, and they have stood strong, and they have told the world the truth. And I heard a little quote from St. Augustine. He said, you know, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Just let it loose and it will defend itself.
Amen.
And that's what you've done. And the world owes the Assyrian people a great debt of gratitude. And I want you to know I couldn't be more in awe of the courage and just the noble valiance that the Assyrian people have demonstrated to the whole world. And by the grace of God, their efforts will not be in vain.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, and until the next segment of the show, God bless you. بتاق الختامة داهت بقتات ويدالا من Congressman Trent Franks. ساويتون باسي مرابا قبارج توخن.